Welcome to our hen house. This is Jasmine Singer.
And this is Marianne Sullivan.
Thank you so much for joining us for this week's show. Marianne's guest will be Suzy Amis Cameron, who is the author of OMD, which she'll be telling you all about. She's also a passionate environmentalist and an equally passionate consumer of plants, as well as a mother and also the wife of director James Cameron. This is very funny because the way the notes are written, it says the mother and wife of James Cameron. She's not the mother and wife of James Cameron. She's just the wife.
You should be happy somebody wrote notes for you instead of criticizing them. It's a very kind person wrote some notes out for you and you're criticizing.
Yeah, very kind. Thank you. And that same kind person will be here later with rising anxieties.
And that would be me. And we also have bonus segment this week on Tuesday that's available to all Flock members. And on that, I'll be continuing my conversation with Suzy. And I'll also be asking her for my favorite kind of recipe, quick and easy. So if you want a recipe for a quick and easy vegan meal, tune in. I'll tell you a little secret. It's a chili. And if you're a member of the Flock, of course, you'll get the email on Tuesday, after the podcast goes up, with that link, or you can find it on the Flock Facebook page. And if you're not a member of the Flock, we hope you will join. And you can do that for $10 a month at ourhenhouse.org/donate.
So I wanted to chat before your Suzy chat. I know that's shocking since we do it every single week, so you had no idea this was coming, about kind of navigating through the world of non-vegan family. And I know that you have a family gathering coming up, and your family is the nicest family on earth.
Well, I don't know about that, but they are very nice.
And they're not vegan. So maybe they're not the nicest people on earth because the nicest people on earth would be vegan. But anyway.
Even if you're an asshole, if you're a vegan, you're the nicest person on earth.
Well, that is not true.
I guess. You have to be both not an asshole and vegan.
Or you can't listen to this show anymore. Which is
so rare, isn't it?
Yeah.
All right. So I did want to talk about this quandary I have, because I am going to a family party on Sunday. It's a graduation party. There's a high school graduate.
Oh my God, Julia's graduating?
Yeah.
Wow.
And also Sienna is graduating from elementary school.
Wow. Okay, go on.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, that was a little aside. I can't believe that she's already graduating high school.
All right, I'm thinking, what should I bring? And I normally bring vegan cheese because, it's easy and it's really, really good. And it's my little bit of activism. And I'm thinking, what's going to happen? And this is what happens every single time. All right, I bring my vegan cheese. Everybody says thank you. They put it out with the other cheeses. And sometimes people will just take some, sometimes, but not usually. Usually I have to say, oh, why don't you try this? And then
you have to open their jaw and you have to stuff it in their mouth.
No, that's not true. They very, dutifully and graciously take some and they always say, oh, this is really good. And so I feel like I've done my little vegan activism. Then they go back to eating non-vegan cheese. And at the end of the party, they wrap up the vegan cheese in a nice little Tupperware and give it back to me. Well, this happens every time. Activism is hard. Family activism is basically impossible.
Yeah.
But, I will continue to do it because that's what we're supposed to do, right? And they do like it. No, it's not. I don't think they're lying to me. They know me well enough to say this is awful if they think it's awful. It's just, it's just a little frustrating. All right, it's extremely frustrating.
Well, that was a little venti. I don't mean the Starbucks size, but I have a little venti story for you too. That kind of speaks to the same sort of ordinary experience that brings all of us together so perfectly, like a little puzzle piece. I was recently with a group of people and meat was ordered for the lunch, and they ordered a couple of vegan things for me and the other vegans. And one person said to me, "Don't kill me, I'm eating meat." And she just looked at me.
So did you kill her?
I killed her, and now she's dead. I'm being looked for right now by the FBI, but whatever. Anyway, so I was like, I don't ever know how to respond when people say that to me. Do you really want to discuss this right now? That was what I said.
I think that's a perfect response. And I'm not sure I would have been that clever. Well,
and she said, no. And then I was like, nice nice curtains, or like I just totally changed the subject. I actually, in retrospect, that's the thing I wish I hadn't done. Like I wish that I had just let it be awkward for a minute, because I actually think that there's so much value.
That's a great point
in the awkwardness, but yeah,
it's hard when you're a civilized human being, especially when you're female, to allow awkwardness to sit.
Yeah,
but I think it's a great activist tactic.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's like, I'm writing this book. I've been mentioning it. It's a book about going vegan, and I'll be writing it through the fall, and then it comes out in December of 2020. So you get a lot of me talking about this in your future. And, I know all the issues. I mean, I know a lot of the issues. I know all of the issues.
It is
somewhat.
Interesting that you always pick up a few new things.
Yes. Or I know something generally. Like, I know something is very bad, and I know kind of sort of what's happening, but I have to explain it to other people. So I'm really in the weeds with learning about it. And like, I feel like a new vegan all over again sometimes. Like when we just learned the issues about factory farming or whatever. And just looking at the numbers, which of course have changed since I went vegan 16 years ago. And just like looking at the numbers and reporting on things. And I was recently reading up on how dairy is this racist institution, and I knew that. Dr. Milton Mills.
Yeah, we've all heard about lactose intolerance and how ridiculous it is that we've made dairy like this, have this reputation as a necessary food, when an enormous percentage of the world, as long as they're not from Northern Europe, has trouble digesting it. But I think I just exhausted how much I know about it.
Well, that was kind of me, but I've been reading this article that Dr. Milton Mills co-wrote with Neil Barnard, and I've been watching some videos that Milton Mills talks about regarding racism and dairy, and it's really unbelievable. I mean, yes, it's what you said, but once you look at the numbers and you look at the little branches of racism that are part of the main racism, kind of thread here, to mix metaphors, I guess it's like my mouth is agape every morning when I'm doing this research, and just learning about how high the prevalence of lactose intolerance is amongst communities of color. I mean, African Americans, I think it's 75 to 78%. With Asian Americans, it's in the 90%. They're Mexican people as well, and indigenous people too. It's really unbelievable that the FDA knows this and they still include it in their dietary guidelines. And Dr. Mills talks in this one video I was watching of him about how this African-American woman came into his office. He's a medical doctor, and she was having all these symptoms and in her stomach and just all these bad things. And he was like, well, you're lactose intolerant. And she said, no, I know that. And he said, well, then why are you eating dairy? And she said, well, because I'm supposed to avoid osteoporosis. And
oh my God,
one of the things he says,
it's so sad.
I have to say, I'm a little nervous about getting some of this wrong, so we should really have Dr. Mills on.
Yeah,
but he did.
I've wanted him for a long time.
I think we couldn't get him for a while. I don't know. It was
let's see if we can get him.
Let's try.
Or somebody else who's really knowledgeable.
But he did talk in that video about how Black women they're genetically predisposed to not get osteoporosis, which of course the irony is that dairy leaches your bones of calcium. I mean, it is a huge culprit of osteoporosis. And anyway, there's all this misinformation out there that's completely relying on the ignorance of communities of color, and it's infuriating.
Can you imagine that dairy? I mean, I know you're immersed in dairy right now
not in dairy. I'm not immersed in dairy,
but in the issues. Because of the work that you're doing. But I was just thinking, as you were saying, they call it the perfect food, it has to be pasteurized or you die from the bacteria in it. A huge percentage of the world can't digest it. They have to reduce the amount of fat in it or it gives you heart attacks. It gives you heart attacks anyway, but there's they modify it in a billion different ways to make it even possible for us to consume it. And then they call it the perfect food. It's so crazy.
I know. I was actually reading Dr. Barnard's book, The Cheese Trap, I think it's called, and it's just about the health implications of having it. But obviously we already know that humans are the only species who take the milk of another species. But what I learned is it took 2.5 million years of humankind existing for it to even occur to someone in the first place. And at that point, like you're saying, the milk needs to be fortified, which means it needs to be mixed with bacteria. And I was also really surprised to learn that there wasn't even a cheese factory in the U.S. until 1851. And it wasn't until 1935 that Americans consumed 5 pounds of it a year. And now it's 33 pounds a year. Like, it's really mind-blowing.
Wow, you are just like a font of statistics on dairy.
I'm really fun at a party.
I bet you're a lot of fun at a party.
Yeah.
That's just what I was
So the two things that happened to me at a party are I spout out facts about dairy, and then I show people my phone, because on the bottom left of my iPhone it says how many emails you have in your inbox, and I have 165,000. So
yeah, I would be in the hospital with anxiety if I had 165,000.
No. Okay, it reminds me of that time. Just go with me here. It reminds me of the time I jumped out of a plane. I was skydiving, and I actually have a fear of heights. But they said that when you skydive, it doesn't register the same way, like as it registers when you're at the top of a tall building or something. So I kind of feel like that's the same way about like the number of my emails. It's so high that it doesn't.
So you
even
feel
give me
worse
anxiety.
about your 165,000 than I do about my 600.
100%.
It's possible
600
that's true.
emails would make me be hospitalized for anxiety. And so, I mean, go figure. But, so where are we? I have...
there was one more story I wanted to tell. It's about a podcast I was listening to, because it made me crazy. So I figure when things make me crazy,
put it here.
I should make all of you crazy
Good.
too.
That's what our highness
why
is
not?
about. Making you crazy.
Spread the
since
crazy.
2010. Go ahead.
So I was listening to this podcast, and it was all about, it didn't have anything to do with animals or any of these issues. It was about climate change, but they weren't focusing on, the food aspects. And then all of a sudden, it was all about transportation and industry and activism and a lot of different issues. But then one of the hosts brought up the fact that the Republicans, they're constantly like telling people that, you're going to have to stop eating meat, and you're going to have to stop eating ice cream, and you're going to have to stop eating cheese. And he was saying this as if those things weren't true. Mm-hmm. And people the point he was making, and I think it's probably a valid point, that people are who want to put people off worrying about climate catastrophe and who want them to stop caring about it are emphasizing the fact that animal foods can cause it, because they feel that once people hear that, they'll just say, he didn't literally say it like this, but the implication is once they hear that they'll have to give up their burgers, they'll just say, oh, well, fuck the planet. Like I won't care about this issue anymore because it means I will have to stop eating meat. It was insane. And they were kind of all like saying, like, the implication was that this was bad activism. And the woman who was the guest, who was the expert, who was being consulted, she was like, oh, don't tell me that. Like in Chicago, where I'm from, sausage is practically a religious experience. And like everybody laughed. And like it was so confusing. And there was some sort of acknowledgement that actually these things are related to climate change, climate catastrophe, climate like devastation. Mm-hmm. But I guess they were saying that, it's the typical environmentalist argument that this pushes people's buttons too hard and they'd rather destroy the world than give up meat. So we shouldn't even bring this up. It was crazy. Yeah. And, it's probably true. They're probably right. I don't know. Like I said, this made me crazy, so I figured I'd make you all crazy too.
Do you ever watch Last Week Tonight with John Oliver?
I have, yes. I love John Oliver.
It's on.
I don't have I don't have cable, and I know I can get these things on Hulu, I think, but I get confused.
Well,
easily.
you should. Well, I get like the HBO app on my
television. Confuses me. It's too complicated.
Well, if you can subscribe to HBO, you should, because I feel like this show you'd be obsessed with it. But yeah, he was doing a whole thing about the new Green Deal and just how people were completely overreacting to it, and the talking point became, they're going to take my hamburgers. and he was doing like this skit, this montage, I should say, of like all this right wing media, and over again, they kept using the line, "They're going to take my hamburgers. They're going to take my hamburgers. They're going to," like over and over.
Oh, so this is exactly the same thing.
Yeah,
yeah.
And the new Green Deal is just like a suggestion. It's nothing binding, and it like includes something in it about how the future will be cultured meat. That's kind of the meat part of it, and that really upset a lot of people, like a lot of right wing people who were like, "Oh no, you had me up until that part, but don't take my hamburgers."
Yeah, but I think that it's not only that they're upset for themselves; they think this is a great talking point.
Yeah. I know.
That's what's really making me crazy.
Well, okay. This is sad. I feel like there's been a lot of annoying news on our top of the show today. But
yeah, my interview is very inspiring.
Good. That's good, because we need a dose of inspiration. So I think we should pivot to that right now. Is that cool with you?
Yes.
Okay.
For sure.
Okay, so let's do that. Let's chat with Suzy Amis Cameron, who is Marianne's interview today, who is, as we mentioned, a noted environmental advocate and a former actor and model, and a mother of 5. And in addition to founding the MUSE School with her sister Rebecca Amis, she has founded a number of environmental organizations, including Cameron Family Farms, which is together with her husband, director James Cameron, Plant Power Task Force, Food Forest Organics, and Red Carpet Green Dress. She's also the author of OMD, and if you want to find out what that stands for and how it can be a super important tool for change, stay tuned. Did you know that you can dedicate a podcast episode to someone you love? For $200, you can not only honor a loved one, human or non, but at the same time support our Henhouse's efforts to change the world for animals. And as a bonus, we'll throw in a 1-year flock membership. Our Hen House is a 501c3 nonprofit, and we rely on your contributions to support our efforts to change the world for animals. We've been on the air every single week without missing one since January 2010. For more information on how to dedicate a podcast episode or just to throw us some cash, visit ourhenhouse.org/donate. Welcome to our Hen House, Suzy.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
We're thrilled to have you, and we're thrilled that you have your new book out. And the title of your book is very intriguing. It doesn't speak for itself. It's entitled OMD, which stands for One Meal a Day. And can you just describe for our audience what if people think that maybe that wouldn't have that much impact? So how much impact can it have to change for people to change just one meal a day, whether it's an impact on themselves personally or on the planet?
Well, exactly. So it's about changing one of your meals a day from an animal-based meal to a plant-based meal. And the thing that blew my mind, which is one of the main reasons why I wrote the book, is that one person eating one plant-based meal a day for a year saves 200,000 gallons of water and the carbon equivalent of driving from Los Angeles to New York. So most people think that, they get paralyzed. They don't think that they can personally make a difference with the environment. But every single time you decide to put something on your plate, you're either helping to destroy the planet or you're helping to heal the planet. And I really do like to tell people too, just straight up front, that it doesn't matter why you decide to go plant-based. You can do it for the environment. You can do it for your health. You can do it for your waistline. You can do it for the animals. You can do it for your sex life. It doesn't matter because everybody wins.
Yeah, it really is a solution for virtually everything. And of course, your hope is, and you express in this book, that people will go beyond one meal a day. But I have to say, I was astounded at the impact just changing one meal can have when you really laid it out. And it is certainly a less daunting idea for a lot of people than starting full force. So who would you say is the audience for this book?
Pretty much everyone.
Yeah, everyone.
I mean, it's been astounding. I did kind of prep myself very carefully before I went out on the road in October, thinking that, there was going to be pushback from somewhere, because when you start talking about eating plant-based, typically people kind of cross their arms and dig in their heels, and they're like, no way am I going to give up my burger or my cheese or, whatever it is that they love. And the reception has been overwhelming. In every single place I've been, every country that I've been in, someone always has a story. I grew up in Oklahoma. We have a farm, about an hour and a half south of Oklahoma City. We grew our own cows. We grew our own pigs, and we ate them. And I have 5 siblings, and they're, when we went plant-based, when my husband and I went plant-based 7 years ago, they thought we were crazy. They thought we were completely crazy, and they're very carnivore centric. But I'm very, very happy to say that, even my older brother, who really, really is, he loves to send me text messages now. He's like, yeah, I'm like way past OMD. I'm doing 2 MDs now. So it's an invitation into incremental change. And it's not about going 100. Now, personally, do I wish that everybody would just, completely go full force and go completely plant-based? Yeah, I do. I really, really do, because I know the impact that it would make on not only the environment and helping animals, but also for your health, which is the main reason why we wanted my whole family to go plant-based. But I'm happy to say now, after 7 years, they are probably 70% of them, and nieces and nephews as well, are plant-based.
So many of us, I think it's so, that's a very inspiring story, because I do think things are changing, and I do think people are more open to this idea, at least for incremental change, than they used to be. But I would say that many of the people listening to this podcast, and when we heard about the harms of animal agriculture, we just stopped eating animal products. For some reason, some people don't find it as hard as other people do. And we kind of thought that all we had to do was tell everybody else what was going on, and they would stop too. But that's not what happens. Why is it so hard for people to hear this message and make this change? I'm not sure that we're the people who could answer it, but you've thought a lot about it. So why do so many people find it so, when there's so much delicious food in the world, find it so hard to change?
Well, I think first and foremost, when after we watched Forks Over Knives 7 years ago, and it was like a no-brainer. It was like 24 hours later, our kitchen was completely cleaned out. But that's just how we roll. And it's a very small percentage of the population that just kind of makes a decision and does it. It is true. And it's kind of what you said. It's like why wouldn't everybody just do it? I mean, the science is there. The science is there for health and for the environment. And, obviously what's happening with the animals is horrible. And so you kind of think, well, duh, of course, everybody's going to, get on the bandwagon and do this. But I think that, change is so scary for people. And, I certainly know that, just with my family and people in general, when we made these bags full of books and DVDs and, sent them out to all of our
Been there,
families.
done that.
Yeah. And we were so up on our soapbox, telling everybody how you become born again. It's the most amazing experience, because you get more energy and you sleep better. And I mean, there's just so many benefits to it. And, people would kind of see us coming and turn around and walk the other way, because they knew we were going to start talking about, and my kids joke about it all the time. It just happened a couple of days ago. They said, Mom, it's crazy. It doesn't matter what the subject is. Somehow you always turn it back to food in the environment. How is that? You can be talking about a chair and somehow, and it's true just because it's, it's such a huge passion. And, when I wake up every morning, I really think about what kind of a world our children, and not just mine, but our children collectively, what kind of a world are they going to grow up in? My oldest son is expecting his first baby, so I'm going to be a grandma in August. And I think about this little being and, what kind of a planet will be there to grow up on. And so it's very urgent.
Yeah,
for
it
me
sure is.
Personally. And I think so many people, and the IPCC report that came out, the United Nations announced that we have until 2030 to turn things around. And I do know that if people really, and it is happening, that if we are able to inspire more people to make incremental change and just one meal a day, it really can make a huge impact. We cannot meet our Paris Accord numbers without looking at animal agriculture. And I think the thing that is also so inviting is that people will try one meal. The comments that I get is, wow, that seems reasonable. Oh, I can do that. I can put almond milk on my cereal instead of cow's milk, or I could have a bean and veggie burrito instead of a beef burrito. I mean, they start really thinking about, oh, that's not that difficult to really do. And then typically what happens is they, depending on which meal they decide to switch out, they don't have that sluggish feeling afterwards. They have more energy.
Getting people to start it really shows them, well, this is actually very pleasant.
Yeah.
In addition to your suggestion that people try just one meal a day, which is a very modest, seems reasonable to people. You also talk a lot about easy tips to get started. So our listeners are vegan, so they're not your audience, but they all have audiences. And what advice would you suggest for them, who find it easy, like we do, to eat this way, but what kind of things can they tell friends and family who, are interested but can't seem to get started?
Give them the book. Seriously.
Seriously, that's really one of the reasons we wanted to have you on. It's not so much that our readers need this message, but they each know family and friends who all need this message. We all do.
Yeah. People always ask, it's like, yeah, that sounds great, but how do I do it? Well, the first part of the book, it's a little, there's a little bit of memoir in there of kind of like, how I got to this place. And then it really goes into, I worked with a brain trust of doctors, plant-based doctors, all of the usual suspects, to give me all of the science behind the health aspects, and then worked with climate scientists, from Chatham House in Oxford and Loma Linda to give the environmental piece. But, after it's like the first 100 pages, then it's really, how do you do it?
Yeah, so it's the why we all know, and it's important to spread that message. But I think we're at the how. Like, we need to tell people how.
Well, it really is a guidebook. I kind of take your hand and walk you through. You can either do one meal a day or 2 meals, or blow up your kitchen like Jim and I did, and some others. And it's got recipes, it's got meal plans, it has shopping lists. There's a whole resource well in there, from other books that you can read and DVDs to different food products. In the various parts of the country. And the thing about the recipes is I had an opportunity to get recipes from some very high-end chefs. And at one point I just sort of sat down and said, no, let's do real food for real people. So all of the recipes in there are from my family, from my children, from my friends, and it's full of kitchen